Hello, and be welcome to the world of darkness. Long ago was it that the sin of Cain spawned the cursed horror that stalks the street at night in search of living blood. The Kindred have long been a secret influence through all ages of human history, plotting against one another in a never-ending jihad. Their immortal progeny are among us to this day, hidden from the eyes of humanity by an elaborate masquerade.
As Elizabeth and Alden arrive to speak with Violet Mary, they find themselves entering into this lovely shop. You can see that at the door is a fairly charming, if somewhat overweight, young woman with pulled back into a bun brown hair. Her husband behind the counter of the shop offers you a warm hello, though a slight grimace at the sight of Alden's visage. And the moment that the two of you express that you are here to see Lady Violet, you are very swiftly seen to the back door, taking you through the inner workings of the shop, a dress shop actually, as you can see various bits of fabrics, half-finished pieces, and so forth, a small fitting space for measurements and for sewing, before you are taken into another room which leads downstairs. There, in comfortable quarters, you find a small but workable sitting room, a couch, a couple of chairs, a small but usable rounded table with a smooth top, doilies for where the teapot and cups in the center are set, and a few other sparse furnishings, including a single bed, a heavy crate large enough for a human body, and a few sporadic decorations and plans to liven up the place, which don't clash too heavily with the carpet flooring. More interestingly, you see that you are not alone. There is a young boy who is sat on the couch, kicking his feet in a very self-satisfied manner, smiling occasionally to the woman who is sat beside him as the two of you come down. The woman, as both of you would recognize from her many debuts at Elysium, is none other than Violet Mary, though obfuscated to not show her typical image. Releasing the boy, whose shoulders she had an arm cast around, she presses her hands together as she raises herself to her full height. Thank you. Thank you both for coming. Please, have yourselves a seat. She turns and rests a hand on Wart's shoulder, saying something in a soothing voice to him. The boy just seems to smile broadly, showing a pair of fangs behind his lips.
Alden would give a light bow of the head to her, with his eyes still looking at her, and he would remove his hat, holding it under his arm, although making sure that the bottom of it doesn't face her, because that would be quite rude. He would gladly take a seat.
Elizabeth removes her hat and places it down on her lap. She sits down in the chair, pushing her dress underneath her, and at the same time heightening her senses.
You at once become aware of the trotting footsteps on the floorboards above you. They don't creak in a way that is audible to human senses, but by dint of your heightened senses of a kindred, you can hear the faint creak of wood give. The slight sprinkle of dust which rains is visible to your eye as it catches the faint light. You can hear the faint crackle of fire on a stove as food bubbles above in a room that you didn't see. You can smell the cooking meat and potatoes, carrots. You distinctly smell the carrots, sweet as they are, a stew of some kind, and there's wine set. It's been a long time since you've thought about food. The older woman mentions something briefly to her husband. Did you see that man who came here? The older gentleman just answers briefly, not wasting much time. None of our business, darling. Just let Violet carry on her business. She's been good to us. Yes, well, I suppose you're right, but my word, he's stank of shit. Well, she's not quite right, but he does stink. So she's halfway there. You can hear the whoosh and slide of Mary's hands as she, with both hands, sweeps her dress past her bottom, pressing it under her legs so that she sits as a proper lady rather than looking like a peacock with half her dress pluming up her ass.
Alden would sit in the chair that he's given with quite good posture. The hand which isn't holding his top hat under it, he would have resting on his knees, as he tries to appear quite gentlemanlike as he listens to her.
Pressing her hand on the midsection of the boy's shoulders, Mary addresses you both. This is my ward, Wart, as they call him. The young boy smiles and nods upwardly at you. He doesn't really say much. He is the one most affected by all this, and I felt it only right to bring him into this matter. She then looks to Elizabeth. Thank you for coming. You are a friend indeed to come when called for such an important thing. I hope it didn't inconvenience you.
Elizabeth puts on a slight smile, very much akin to that of a modern lady, and says,
It was quite all right. If anything, it was a welcome invitation. I thank you for seeing me.
Looking to Alden, she then motions, splaying outward her hand with her palm cast skyward. And I thank you for carrying my invitation to Miss Grey.
Alden places a hand over his unbeating heart. It was my pleasure.
She smiles. Then looking to Wart, she puts her free hand over his chest and gestures to each of you. Wart, this is Alden, the gentleman who informed me of your predicament. And Elizabeth Grey, a friend. They're going to help us. The boy nods before speaking. All right. Seem like a decent bunch, though I admit I already know who you are, Mr. Grey.
I suppose word travels fast then.
Not all of us go strutting round Whitechapel like we fancy queens. He makes a motion of picking at his pant legs as though to make them billow like a dress. Violet holds his head and presses it against her shoulder, as though to soothe the poor boy and make him behave. Putting a hand over his chest again, she says to him softly, though you can distinctly hear it quite clear, Elizabeth, as though she were whispering in your own ear. Now what? Tell them what it is you told me. He nods suddenly gravely. As she lets him go for a little bit, he sits there, coming more into his own. The old gaffer, he pauses, looking to Mary and then wincing before saying, Prince Fagin is, well, he fancies himself some protector of the unfortunates. When he helps some unfortunate victim, Prince Fagin feels as he's earned the blood he later draws on in compensation. His pack of children sometimes assist him in these hunts. They've become more than messengers or thieves, for they found the practice of murder progressively easier. For a moment she looks to the two of you, away from Wart, her lips parting to show fangs as she quickly hides it behind her polite smile. And now we all know the kind of beast we deal with.
Alden would almost cough, giving off an expression that he is feeling some sense of distaste towards Prince Fagin, and so almost adjusts his posture, placing his hand quite relaxed onto his leg.
Elizabeth would grimace, slightly wrinkling her nose and narrowing her eyes.
It takes a true monster to turn kids into war machines.
Violet gives a solemn nod before speaking. His interference into mortal affairs may be interpreted as a breach of the Masquerade. Though none have so far challenged him on this, she holds up a finger. That is the first thing which I plan to do. Secondly, Wart is aware of one of these hunts. That is where we will intercept him. I am also aware of numerous slums over which he has silently mastered. Miss Grey, that is where I ask you use your financial acumen to harm his business, and that you, Alden, disrupt their peacefulness. Flood them with rats. Though it is saddening you must do so, you must make them inhospitable places for those living there, as to draw him out and give him no place to hide.
Alden would give a firm nod at that.
That is the initial part of what I think. However, I am not used to such things. While I am perfectly capable of pointing out his failings to the other kindred at Elysium and polite society, I bring up the rest with you.
As it happens, Elizabeth says, raising her finger up, I was already looking into some of his businesses.
Alden, waving his hand to emphasize his point, would speak. As kindred, we're often called monsters, especially kindred of our kind. He would gesture to himself and to Mary. But it's time that we truly stop a real monster.
Alden can tell his words sadden her. Deeply. Though she seems to recover quickly enough. Wart, however, pipes up. There's something you should know about Fagin. In his exploitations of his destitute domain and those in it, he employs a lot of unfortunates, and has become an expert in its geography in London's seedier parts. He knows all the thieves' dens and flash houses and locations where the homeless gather. It make on life a real bloody hard time, it does. He rubs his arms somewhat frightenedly and woundedly. Dejectedly, he looks down towards his ankle before looking back upward. Another thing. He looks like an old corpse. Shock white hair, dark eyes, big hooked nose, like a witch's nose. But whenever he talks to kindred, at least the ones that he wants to look good in front of, he makes himself look like he used to when he was alive. And other times he looks like an elderly beggar. That's the persona that the straight Arabs know him as. Violet rubs his back reassuringly. You can almost hear, and in fact both of you, imploring your heightened sexes, in fact do hear her as she says, "Poor dear." Looking at the two of you, she says with sudden resoluteness, "I will be approaching Sir Jebediah Aaron Cotton." Alden knows that name. Biggest kindred crime boss in town. Nobody comes close to his power over the criminal underworld as he does. At least not among kindred, and that's saying something. Elizabeth, you know him as a member of your clan who is very much the affable fellow, donates large amounts of money to charity events and such. Popular in certain high society circles.
Alden would ponder. The criminal crime boss?
You mean the affable gentleman? So that's where he gets all his money. She'll put her hand on her chin and rub it slightly.
Alden would look to Mary.
Mary gives a resolute nod. The East End is where a lot of his interests happen to be. And despite his profession, he is an utmost gentleman, as, she gestures, Miss Elizabeth Grey has pointed out.
Alden would stroke his chin, nodding.
With the criminal underworld against him, and those seedier places of the East End barred to him, he will have limited places where he can go, and far fewer friends he can ever consider drawing upon. Furthermore, as you may know, the alternate identity of Sir Dr. Jebediah Aaron Cotton is another personality. Jerry Aaron, the criminal boss. A visit from him would not be a pleasant one, though I do not want to dwell on rude business. Wart nods. Mighty rude. Not worth dwelling on. He just shakes his head, mouthing, "Nah." I understand if this is difficult for you to be so clandestine and nefarious in such a fashion, though it is for the greater good. I understand if it is not enough for you. So this is my final opportunity to present you with the option of withdrawing from this business. I will ask you to be quiet and respectful to those of us who proceed if you do. Otherwise, and forgive my harshness, I will be forced to take action against you next.
Alden would stand, walking slightly forward and gesturing to her hand, almost as permission to take hold of it.
Raising her hand, she presents it to him.
He would grasp her hand very gently, holding part of the fingers with his own, and give them a very light kiss. That is no problem. Already I do thank you for the effort you've put in.
Lifting her other hand from where it rested, rubbing the back of the boy Ward, She rubs it against his cheek. Thank you, my friend. I knew you would be true. You note, as she does this, there is a very faint smell of the grave dirt which comes from her. It seems you have a couple of things in common, though it doesn't permeate her quite as much as it does yourself. Elizabeth, however, over Wart's shoulder, you see your brother sneering at the boy. Inclining himself forward, the visage of your brother, which becomes partially translucent, hovers over Wart, his hands braced against the other side of the couch as he leans in, his own eyes peering over that of the boy's head. Though no one else can see him, he points. He's no better than that other one. Look at what he has in his pocket. Despite his outward appearance, that which everyone can plainly see of this sad and frightened vagrant boy who has been harassed and hunted and taken advantage of by Fagin. Elizabeth can see that his eyes burn with violet colors, and a vermilion spreads through him, though as he looks over her beautiful clothes, his mouth turns dark green as he licks his lips. A hint of brown streaks through his hair, darkening it, and when Violet makes a comment that is lost to you, as she stares at him for a moment, commenting about Fagin, immediately a wave of red and purple permeate through him, and that's when you see something roll out of his pocket as he adjusts himself. A button. A silver button, which belonged to your brother. One of his cufflinks from when he died. The cufflinks weren't there. Your brother, who's now behind you, puts his hands on the backs of your shoulder and points angrily. He stole from me. He saw everything. Wart doesn't seem to notice at all that he has lost this silver button in his pocket.
Elizabeth hides her true feelings behind her mask, but she realizes something needs to be done. So, she stands up and walks towards Miss Mary.
Miss Mary, this Fagin has been causing chaos in a place I've come to realize is my home. A place that he had infected and corrupted. I cannot let it abide, for this blight must be put to death.
Standing, Mary puts a hand to Elizabeth's shoulder. Forgive my forwardness, please. We are not sheriff nor scourge, but what we will do is bring Nathaniel Simmons down on him afterwards. I will speak to Lady Anne about it. A harsh gesture, as Nathaniel Simmons doesn't play nicely. He has quite literally become famous among the kindred of the British Isles for hunting down those who have been subjected to blood hunts. He is one of the most ruthless and ferocious scourges you could ask for. Mary squeezes Elizabeth's hand with both of her own now, as she speaks reassuringly. But I am grateful that you stand with me still. Holding her other hand out for Wart, and then motioning for them all to hold hands in a circle, she smiles. Sweetly, politely, the epitome of civility.
Alden would place his top hat to rest on the chair as he moves to hold the other's hands in a circle, with a very polite, joyful smile on his face.
Before Elizabeth joins hands with the rest of them, she reaches out to give Wart a big hug. Though this is a mask, this is her cover as she reaches behind him to grab that silver button.
Both Mary and Wart are very taken aback by this. Mary expressing a, "Oh!" whereas Wart goes stiff before seeming to hesitate for a moment as he contemplates, before, in a fiendish act of skilled pageantry, he wraps his arms around her. "You're a good lady. I'll remember this, I will. We'll be fast as friends, I promise."
Elizabeth clasps the silver button in her hand, slightly tight as she fights to avoid causing a scene.
Fastest friends indeed, Mr. Ward. Fastest friends indeed.
She'll say as she pulls back, and as she pulls back, she'll very covertly, very carefully sneak that button into her sleeve. Elizabeth gives Wart a couple pats on the shoulders before looking back to Violet Mary and smiling, an all too practiced, polite smile.
And with that, end scene.